I've been broke for 2 years now, and I think God's been teaching me something that I didn't expect. Because when I first went broke, when I first had, well, when I had nothing, my first instinct was to pray for money. Just, God, please, I need provision. I need a breakthrough. I need you to fix this. And I meant it. I was desperate. But nothing happened. And, I kept praying and praying and I kept waiting. And, I started getting frustrated because I thought that's how it worked. You pray, God provides, problem solved. But that's not what happened. And I think I was praying for the wrong thing. I've been broke for 2 years. And for most of that time, I was praying for the wrong thing. I was praying for money, for provision, for God to fix my situation. But God wasn't trying to fix my situation. He was trying to fix me. You see, when you're broke, you can't ignore the hard questions anymore. You have to look at yourself honestly. And that's what I realized. I wasn't broke because God was punishing me. I was broke because God was rebuilding me. Because when you're comfortable, you don't examine your life. You don't ask hard questions. You just coast along. But when you're broke, when you have nothing, you can't coast anymore. You have to figure out who you actually are. Not who you pretend to be when you have money, but who you are when everything has been stripped away. And that's when I stopped praying for money. I started praying for wisdom instead. Like King Solomon. Because I realized if God gave me money before I learned this lesson, I'd just make the same mistakes again. So God's not keeping me broke to punish me. He's keeping me broke to rebuild me. And I think that's what most people miss when they're struggling financially. They think being broke is the problem. But being broke isn't the problem. Being broke is the classroom. Because here's what I've learned over these last 3 years. When you're comfortable, when you have money, when everything's working just fine, you don't ask hard questions. You don't examine your life. You just keep going. But when you're broke, you can't avoid it anymore. You have to ask yourself, why am I here? What led me to this? How the fuck did I get here? And, more importantly, you'd ask, who am I when I have nothing? Because that's the real question, right? Who are you when everything's stripped away? When you don't have money to hide behind? When you don't have status? When you don't have security? Who are you then? And I think that's what God's been showing me. That I spent, my whole life building an identity around what I had, not who I was. The job I had, the money I made, the life that I was building, that's who I thought it was. But when all of that went away, I had to figure out who I actually am underneath all of that. And that's hard, man. That's really hard. Because you realize how much of yourself was just performance, or performative, as I call it these days. How much of yourself was just trying to look like you had it all together. And when you're broke, you can't perform anymore. You just are what you are. And, I think that's why God uses poverty as a classroom. Because it forces you to be honest with yourself. It forces you to ask, well, what do I actually believe? What do I actually stand for? Not what I say I believe when it's easy, but what I believe when it costs me something. And that's the lesson here. That's the lesson I've been learning. Because when I first went broke, I thought the problem was that I didn't have any money. But the real problem was I didn't know who I was without it. And God's been using these 2 years to show me and reveal to me that exact question. To strip away everything that I thought I needed. To strip away the identity that I built around having all these things. And also to force me to figure out who I actually am. And that's why I stopped praying for provision. Because I realized if God gave me money right now, before I learned this lesson, I'd just go right back to who I was before. I'd go right back to building my identity around, what I have instead of who I actually am. And I'd end up right back here. So, God's not keeping me broke because he doesn't care. He's keeping me broke because he's rebuilding me. And I think that's what King Solomon understood. When God asked Solomon what he wanted, Solomon didn't ask for riches. He didn't ask for power. He didn't ask for success. He asked for wisdom. Because Solomon understood something that I'm just now learning. That wisdom is more valuable than money. Because money can be lost. Money can be made. But wisdom stays with you. And once you have wisdom, everything else just follows. Not because you're chasing it, but because you know who you are. And that's what these 2 years have been for me. Just learning who I am when I have nothing. Learning what I actually believe when it costs me something. Learning to ask God for wisdom instead of comfort. Because here's what I've realized. God doesn't want me comfortable. He wants me capable. God doesn't want me to have everything that I want. He wants me to become who I'm supposed to be. And I couldn't learn that while I was comfortable. So I had to lose everything to see it. I had to be broke to understand that security isn't the goal. Character is. And I think that's what a lot of guys miss when they're struggling. They think God's punishing them. Oh, why me? Why couldn't it be someone else? Or whatever it is. But God's not punishing you. He's rebuilding you. He's actually just stripping away everything that you thought you needed. So you can figure out who you actually are. And once you understand that, everything changes. You start learning from it. You stop asking, when will this end? You start asking, what am I supposed to learn here? What's the lesson in this? And that's when God can actually work. Because as long as you're praying for him to fix your circumstances, solve your problems, you're missing the point. He's not trying to fix your circumstances. He's trying to fix you. And once he does that, the circumstances take care of themselves. So every morning when I pray, I don't ask God for money anymore. I don't ask him for a job. I don't even ask him for a breakthrough. I ask for wisdom. I ask him to show me what I need to learn. I ask him to show me who I'm supposed to be, who I'm supposed to become. Because I finally understand. Being broke isn't the punishment. Being broke is the process. And God's not keeping me here to make me suffer. He's not keeping me here to make you suffer. He's keeping me here to make me strong. So if you're broke right now, if you're struggling, maybe you're praying for the wrong thing. Stop praying for God to change your circumstances and start praying for God to change you. Because that's what he's trying to do. He's not trying to give you money. He's trying to give you wisdom. And once you have that, everything else follows. Anyway, that's what I've been learning. Coming up to 2 years. 2 years broke. And I finally get it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.